What you are about to experience is out of this world. Politics, history, and of course, a lot of entertainment. It's time to rock it with the Docket.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Kyle Dockery with the Dockery Docket. We are here with our very 139th episode of the Dockery Docket. I'm excited to be here, and I hope that you are excited to be here as well. And if you are excited to be here as well, make sure to go down below, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, so then you never miss one of my videos. So there seems to be more drama in the House of Representatives. There is fighting, people are trying to delay votes in an illegal way, and there is even a new Speaker of the House. Now I know what you're thinking, how on earth did all of this happen? Well, this was supposed to be episode 137, but then all of a sudden a bunch of terrorists decided to attack Israel, so I had to put this episode on the back burner. But here it comes now, as now it is time to explain how this whole process began and ended. So that means it's once again time for your favorite political drama show, As the House Turns. So the first crisis is that the House has to figure out how to fund the government. Apparently the best way to do this is days before the government shuts down, and everyone has to debate and talk about what they want and such. Republicans want a spending bill that would give less money to Ukraine and more money to the southern border. Democrats want a bill that will fully fund Ukraine from now until the end of time with no money for the border. So McCarthy had a plan. McCarthy, along with the Republicans, decided to create a clean stopgate bill. It would keep the government open till November 17th, where we will do this all over again, which will once again cause more drama. So the Republicans created this bill, and it only sent $6.15 billion to Ukraine instead of the wanted $24 billion, and the Democrats were not happy about that. Along with that, Republicans gave this bill to the Democrats last minute, which is clearly a cheeky strategy. The Republicans basically said, we made this bill. Democrats, if you don't vote for it, then the shutdown will be your fault. I do understand the Democrats' frustration, though. As Hakeem Jeffries, the leader of the Democrats, said in a statement, we are on the brink of a government shutdown, and at the 11th hour, legislation is dropped on the American people. Along with that, he said, and we're told that you have 5 to 10 minutes to evaluate legislation that is more than 70 pages long, and expected to simply trust the word of our extreme MAGA Republican colleagues. So now the Democrats have an idea. They have to delay, which what I just read from Hakeem Jeffries was a 52-minute long speech trying to give Democrats a chance to read this bill. Then on the floor of the House of Representatives, House Democratic Whip Catherine Clark called to adjourn, which means that they were going to go home, and the members slowly trickled to cast in their votes. The motion failed 0 to 427, but it wasted more than an hour of time. The thing is, the Democrats wanted to read this bill, and they also wanted to stop this bill because the Democratic Senate had a bill that would have funded the government, and it would have given Ukraine $12 billion, which isn't the $24 billion that they wanted, but it's halfway there, closer than the Republicans. McCarthy then said that the Senate bill would not be passed. However, this would be a good thing for the Democrats because they would spin it and claim that the Republicans are shutting down the government, flipping the roles. So the House bill had to be stopped at all costs, even if that way was a little bit illegal and also extremely stupid. As Representative Jamal Bowman was racing to get to the floor, he came across a door that was usually open for voters, but on that day, it wasn't open. So he pulled the fire alarm, thinking that it would have unlocked the door.
Hey pal, you just blowing from Stupid Town?
Now, Bowman is coming out and saying, oh, I swear I didn't do it on purpose. I didn't do it to delay. I promise it was a mistake. That is 100% bullcrap. This guy used to be a middle school principal. He knows what a fire alarm does. It has never opened a door in the world ever. And if a fire alarm has never opened up a door, why would that change now? It is honestly so stupid, and of course he did it to delay the votes. You can't convince me otherwise. Even the sign on the door proves that this was a failed political stunt, as there are 2 signs on the door that read, "Emergency exit only. Push until alarm sounds, 3 seconds. Door will unlock in 30 seconds. Now, what is this sign saying to push? Well, if you are an idiot, you would think the fire alarm. If you were smart, you would know that it is talking about the metal bars. You know, the ones that actually open up the door? I'm talking about the metal handles that are right below the sign. It's right there. That's what you are supposed to push. I didn't think I would have to explain this to a grown adult. And I honestly can't wrap my head around it. And I will say it will be interesting to see if Bowman will go to jail for disrupting an official proceeding or an insurrection. Well, even though the Democrats tried to block this bill from passing, eventually the House was able to get the bill passed. Then it moved up to the Senate, where it was quickly passed. Then it went to the President, where Joe Biden signed it, and it officially became law. Now we have 45 days to figure out a permanent solution before we end up going into a shutdown situation again. So now everyone is happy, right? Everyone got what they wanted from the bill, and McCarthy did his job. He got the Democrats and the Republicans to work together to get a bill passed to prevent a government shutdown that could have hurt millions of Americans. However, not everyone was happy, as Matt Gaetz and the Republicans in the Freedom Caucus were angry at Kevin McCarthy for working with Democrats behind their backs. Passing a 45-day resolution for Matt Gaetz wasn't good enough. The Republicans in this Freedom Caucus, as they are called, are sick and tired of the same old, because this happens every single time there is a government shutdown looming, and we have to pass a spending bill. Republicans kick the can down the road and say, oh well, we will just work on it later. We'll just pass a little resolution and we'll get it done, don't worry. Then, when push comes to shove and the House has to do something, they pass a 5,483 omnibus bill, which usually just has a bunch of random crap in it. Congressmen can just throw whatever they want into that bill and no one will read it anyway, so it just passes. And Matt Gaetz and the Republicans were sick and tired of this. So, as Republicans like Matt Gaetz continue to emphasize that America was $33 trillion in debt and we need to do something to fix that, it was realized by Matt Gaetz and the Freedom Caucus that McCarthy was not the solution. Now, these 2 gentlemen have never gotten along, as if we go back to the very first episode of As the House Turns, you will remember that Matt Gaetz was the one that was leading the charge against McCarthy to be Speaker, which led to a record number of votes to figure out who the Speaker of the House was going to be. McCarthy had to give Gaetz many concessions to get Gaetz to back him to be the Speaker of the House. One of those concessions was a motion to vacate, which meant that at any time if the Republicans didn't like what McCarthy was doing, they could call for a vote to remove McCarthy as the Speaker of the House. And many Republicans hated this new spending bill, as it was reported that McCarthy was secretly working with the Democrats behind the scenes to give more money to Ukraine after the short-term spending bill was passed. So according to Matt Gaetz, McCarthy was working behind the scenes telling Democrats that in the short-term bill, there wouldn't be a lot of funding for Ukraine, but in the next bill, there will be more funding. This controversy was also fueled by President Biden, as on CBS News, he was asked, are you going to be able to trust Speaker McCarthy when the next deal comes around? Joe responded by saying, we just made one about Ukraine, so we'll find out. Now, McCarthy and Kareem Jean-Pierre have both denied this, but it is interesting how this money from Ukraine has caused so many issues. So Matt Gaetz was angry about that, along with the spending bill in general, as this was just a temporary bill kicking the can down the road. Gaetz, I believe, has a pretty good idea when it comes to how we should pass these different spending bills. Instead of doing a large omnibus bill that is 15,000 pages long, Gaetz wants to go line by line and see what they can fund and what they cannot. The House can bring small bills to the floor that says, okay, we need to spend X amount of money on the military. Then it can be voted on, and if it's passed, it goes to the Senate, goes to the president, boom, military funded. And then they move on to education. We need X amount of dollars for education. It gets passed in the House, moves to the Senate, goes to the president, boom, passed law. And these bills could be very small. It doesn't have to be 70 pages long like the other one, and maybe Democrats and Republicans could actually read the bills so then they could know what's inside it and vote yes or no based on that. I feel like that's a lot better than having this big old bill that no one knows what's inside it because they haven't read it. But McCarthy is failing to do that. He is following the same path as all the other speakers before him. The Tim Ryans, the John Boehners. All of them have done the exact same thing. They are working with Democrats behind their back, and they don't have a backbone for when it comes to cutting different lines of spending. And so Matt Gaetz went to the floor and led a motion to oust McCarthy. At first, Gaetz said that it might fail the first time, but in a surprise resolution, it passed, and McCarthy was the first Speaker of the House to ever be ousted, as 8 Republicans joined all the Democrats in the House and voted yes to oust the Speaker. This was historic, but could also lead to big problems down the road, as there are currently 221 Republicans in the House, and 8 of them made this decision to get rid of McCarthy. Will the other 213 be mad at these 8 Republicans and not vote for a new speaker that they promote? If these Republicans are not unified, then we could once again have another situation like before, where it takes weeks to figure out who the next speaker will be. Well, that's exactly what happens, as I sort of agree with Matt Gaetz, and it was time for McCarthy to go. However, I don't think Gaetz had a plan or the votes to replace McCarthy, as at this time the party was divided between the Freedom Caucus and the Rhino Republicans. The question was, who could unite these two factions that are bitter rivals? Well, first was House Majority Leader Steve Scalise, who is very conservative and also has a lot of experience, as he was the second in command in the Republican Party behind Kevin McCarthy for 9 years. The experience is good, and he is definitely not a Freedom Caucus Republican, which could have helped him with the more Republicans that were in the middle. However, the problem was that Scalise could have just been a carbon copy of McCarthy. A day after he was nominated to be the Speaker of the House, he withdrew from the race, claiming that there are still schisms that have to get resolved in the party, which meant that there was a divide in the party, so the Republicans needed someone else. This someone else was Jim Jordan, the complete opposite of Steve Scalise when it comes to political views. They are both conservative, but Jim Jordan is known to be more conservative and was definitely a pick that the Freedom Caucus absolutely loved, as Jordan was the head chair of the Freedom Caucus. Behind closed doors, Jordan had the votes to win, but on the floor it completely crashed, as there were 3 times that the Republicans came to the floor with Jordan as the Speaker, and each time it failed, with different Republicans voting for either McCarthy or Scalise. So he was kicked off, and the Republicans scrambled to find another replacement. They found 9 possible candidates. The Republican caucus met with all of these men, and the men made their claim for the speakership. After much voting behind closed doors, the Republicans decided to pick Tom Emmer, the House Majority Whip. Now, Emmer was met with a lot of hatred from the GOP. Honestly, I don't know how on earth he won the nomination to be the Speaker. He supports getting rid of the Electoral College, and he wants to send more money to Ukraine, which is exactly what Matt Gaetz didn't want to happen. And then later, on that day that he was nominated, Trump came out and claimed voting for a globalist rhino like Tom Emmer would be a tragic mistake. This was right after Trump said he was going to stay out of the House race. This ended the chance that Emmer had, and later that day he dropped out as a candidate to be the Speaker of the House. Once again, all the Republicans met in a room and once again tried to figure out who the next Speaker was going to be. After 3 ballots, Republicans voted for Mike Johnson of Louisiana to be the Speaker. He was the 4th person to be selected as the Speaker. And this time, the Republicans weren't backing down. This was going to be their guy. As after he was selected, Johnson made a speech where he claimed that he was confident that he would gain the amount of votes and that the caucus was now unified. And on October 25th, the House joined, and in dramatic fashion, Johnson won the speakership with 220 votes to Hakeem Jeffries' 209 votes. Now, who is this Mike Johnson guy? Well, Mike Johnson is a constitutional lawyer that helped Trump with both his impeachment trials and also the 2020 election case. He failed to certify the election, which Democrats can't seem to get over, even though there are Democrats in that chamber that claim that Trump was aided by the Russians and he was an illegitimate president in 2016, but the Democrats have used that to claim that Mike Johnson is a terrible, horrible insurrectionist. Honestly, the guy seems very quiet, and I like that. He's not very bold and brashful like Donald Trump is or Jim Jordan is. He sort of keeps to himself. And I like that because it's sort of a fresh air from what we have seen in politics, the mudslinging, the getting angry at people all the time. And he just sort of stays back. And he does have points that he expresses, but he doesn't name call. He doesn't get mad at people. And along with that, he is a conservative man with very strong conservative principles. As there was a moment, I believe, before the vote that he and many Republicans met and prayed. With this Christian belief, he is also anti-LGBTQIAP and anti-abortion. Now, some like Hakeem Jeffries are claiming that Mike Johnson is the same as McCarthy, and I personally don't think that's true. I think Mike Johnson is more conservative than McCarthy, and Johnson would rather spend our money on Israel than Ukraine. However, the guy just got in, so who knows how he's really going to be. His first test will be that budget bill that will have to be passed soon to keep the government open. Will it pass? Will he fail? Will Matt Gaetz or another Republican decide to kick him out? We will just have to wait and see if there will be another dramatic episode of As the House Turns. And with that, I just want to thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Dockery Docket. And until next time, like my mom always says, be good, be kind, be loving, goodbye.